Today, we're going to be ranking the top 2025 Dynasty rookie running backs. And again, the premise here at Dynasty Trading Room is we'll be looking at these players from a prospect perspective. That means diving into the film, looking at those film breakdowns, and crossing the bridge to fantasy football with these advanced stats. Starting off with our RB1, we have Asen Greiner. And I don't think there's really much of debate for anyone else to be here. Now, personally, I don't have him as my 101 due to the positional value of wide receiver, but there's not really an argument for anyone else to get ahead of Greiner. 2024, obviously, unbelievable stats, 2,497 rushing yards, 29 rushing touchdowns, and he wasn't amazing as a pass catcher in 2024, but when you look at the film in 2023, he was a lot better, and I think a lot of that has to just do with the fact that Boise State didn't need to use him as a pass catcher. So 2023 looked a lot better. He was a wide receiver in high school as well, so had a decent route tree that 2023 season, and wasn't bad in 2024, but also the stats back up that he was a lot better in 2023. Caught 43 passes for 569 yards. As a runner, he's just unbelievable. Fantastic contact balance, very quick, elite vision, really no knocks on his profile at all. Asen Greiner is easily my RB1 in the 2025 class. Now, RB2 is where things get a little shaken up. Now, I personally have Trevon Henderson as my RB2, but I do understand people are going to have a few other backs that we'll mention ahead of him. Personally, I love Trevon a lot because he broke out as a freshman, had 1,248 yards, 6.8 yards per carry, and also caught 27 passes for 312 yards. Just has a ton of juice, fantastic hands, plus size, and will get on the field for third downs because he's a very good pass blocker, and that's something you won't notice unless you watch the film. Now, pass blocking doesn't directly equate to fantasy points, but what we've seen a lot at Ohio State is he'll get on the field, he'll do a good job blocking, and he'll get those easy dump-off points, which is fantastic for PPR leagues, and he can only get those points because he's on the field blocking on third down. I really do think that he made himself a lot of money in the NFL draft during this college football playoff run, showed that elite explosiveness on that screen pass he took to the house against Texas, and just the whole run. He's looked fantastic. Personally, a lot of people had him comped like a Tony Pollard type ceiling, and while it wouldn't be bad, I mean, Pollard had that one really good year when he was used perfectly with the Cowboys in 2022, where he had about 15 points per game. I honestly see Henderson as a Jahmyr Gibbs type ceiling. I'm not saying he's going to be the RB1 overall, but I think he definitely has that elite, he can play with other back that's, a grinder like Dave Montgomery and still be elite because of how efficient he is on his touches. Obviously, the knock against him, though, is he's not as physical. The vision with him is inconsistent, so that is a little worrisome, but if he's used right, I think that can be wiped away, and I think he will be fantastic in the NFL. My RB3 is going to be Omarian Hampton, running back out of UNC. He's also been very good as a junior, broke out 1,661 yards, 5.9 yards per carry with 15 touchdowns. Now, he did catch 38 passes for 373 yards, but personally, when I turn on the film, I don't really see it. The route tree really only extends to Texas routes out of the backfield, and I don't really see much else outside of that. It's just a whole lot of screen passes, a lot of dump offs because he's very good with the ball in his hands, and I'm not trying to take anything away. It is good that these running backs are catching the ball at least because there's so many guys that can't even do that, but I don't think he's on the same level as a guy like Henderson. I think a lot of those stats are a little fluky because of college. Also, I don't think that his home run speed is nearly as good as Henderson's. He's fast and he has good speed, but I don't think it's elite by any means. However, going to the pros as a pure runner, I do think he is better than Hampton. I would take him over Henderson from an NFL draft perspective. He's a bowling ball running back, very physical, can make men miss just by running them over, has good burst and also very good contact balance. So a lot of things you love to see. I think he will be a very good running back at the NFL level. I've seen people comp him to a guy like Nick Chubb, and I could definitely see that. I just obviously love Henderson a lot and think he has a Jahmyr Gibbs level ceiling. At 4 though, I am going to go with Caleb Johnson, and a lot of people normally have him behind Omarian Hampton, but ahead of Trevon Henderson. However, I just don't see it from a pass catching perspective. When you turn on the film, it's just really not there at all. Doesn't have very good pass catching stats to back it up either. Caught 22 passes for 188 yards. You obviously see the passes caught is not bad, but the yards is just not there, which kind of indicates that he's just getting dump offs and screen passes, which was demonstrated on film as well. As a pure runner, though, I think he's very good. Kind of just a similar player to Omarian Hampton, just not nearly as good. Ran for 1,537 yards, though, 6.4 yards per carry. And I will say, he clearly elevates the Iowa offense on film. They have been bad for years. They struggle to get things going. And Johnson really took over that offense and carried them on his back. So there is a lot to be said about what he did for that program. He has great vision, though. I think his vision is arguably one of the best in the class outside of Genty. He has fantastic physicality, very good size, so he's another guy that's going to run people over. Just is a very good pure runner. Again, I don't think he has very good home run speed, though. I think it's even less than Hampton. He kind of struggles to get to the outside at times, so he doesn't have that, near big play explosiveness like Henderson, of course. And then even Hampton, I think it's a little bit lacking. So that's why I'm a little concerned. Doesn't have the big playability, and also pass catching isn't great as well. At 5, though, we are going to have Quinn Judkins, and he is such an interesting prospect because he was being talked about in such a highlight after his freshman year. Broke out as a freshman, 1,567 yards, 16 touchdowns. When you turn on that Ole Miss tape, it is nuts. And it's kind of crazy just to see how far he's fell off in terms of where the community views him, because he was the darling, he was the easy 2025 RB1 after this year. But coming to Ohio State, even playing with Trevon Henderson, he just hasn't looked the same. I just think that he lacks the burst. When I watch the Ole Miss tape and then I watch the Ohio State tape, the Ole Miss burst is a lot better, even though he's an older and more experienced running back and should be getting, bigger, faster, stronger by the time he's, at Ohio State 2 years later? So that is very worrisome. He's an inconsistent pass catcher. He does do some things very well. I think his route tree is pretty solid. He just doesn't have the naturally soft hands, so it can lead to some drops. It can lead to some inconsistency in that game. However, a lot of people have said, he has bricks for hands. I completely disagree with that, and I watched him play as well 2 times live at Ohio State, and he looked pretty good as a route runner, so that's one thing that I kind of am going to sway away or disagree with the general consensus. He also doesn't really display, a lot of plus features in general besides he's a big back. He doesn't have, great speed, and the long speed is also not there. He'll get tracked down pretty frequently later in his career, looking at Ohio State especially. That said, he's very good in open space. He can make guys miss. He can run a guy over. He actually has some pretty solid moves on him as well. Has 3-down upside as that, bigger back with, solid pass catching ability. He has plus contact balance. I wouldn't say it's elite, but it's definitely better than average. Judkins is a guy that I'm kind of, I don't really know what to do with him, but it looks like he's probably going to get day 2 draft capital, so I'm fine taking him in the mid-second round of Dynasty Superflex rookie drafts. At 6, we are going to have a pretty big riser. Previously, I had Nicholas Singleton here, and he just announced he's going back to school. So bumping up naturally and filling his spot is going to be darling Cam Skattebo out of ASU. I'm a big fan of Cam Skattebo. I'm really excited to watch him down at the Senior Bowl in Mobile. Again, myself, 4 other members of the FTR team have media credentials, so we will be covering that event with exclusive access for you guys. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on post notifications for the channel, subscribe for a ton of content that week. You're going to be getting a lot of good stuff from us. But going back to Skattebo, he really broke out as a senior, running for 1,711 yards and 21 touchdowns, 5.8 yards per carry. But where he excels is through the air. Pass catching is phenomenal on tape. Stats back it up. Caught 45 passes for 605 yards. And that game against Texas in the college football playoffs, I personally also had a ton of concerns because he wasn't playing fantastic competition, didn't really break out until his senior year. But in the biggest game of his life against some great competition in Texas, even though their defense has struggled, I mean, that's still a legit football team. He put up 143 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns and also looked fantastic through the air, catching 8 passes for 99 yards. He's insanely physical, has great one-on-one moves, fantastic contact balance. I mean, he purely just has that dog in him that when you watch, the stats can't say it, but I watched the tape and I saw it, and I encourage you to, even look at some full game highlights. You will see the man just runs like he is angry at the world, kind of similar to an Isaiah Pacheco, and that's something that just you can't explain, but it translates well to the NFL. Now, the cons with Scadaboo is he doesn't have NFL level speed. He kind of reminds me of a Kyren Williams type player. Obviously, that worked out for Kyren, but there's a lot of backs that ran extremely slow 40 times that just don't pan out in the NFL, so that obviously is a big worry. He's not a home run hitter. He doesn't have a ton of agility and explosiveness, naturally. He can make guys miss, but it's not going to be with some crazy, insane athletic plays. So that is a little worrisome. He doesn't really have NFL athleticism, but he does everything else really well. Just great technique from Scadaboo. At 7, we're going to have Ali Gordon. And I'll be honest, I don't know what to do with Ali Gordon. He was unbelievable in 2023 and fell off a cliff in 2024. No one really saw this one coming. It was just a crazy fall off. In 2023, he had 1,732 yards, 21 touchdowns, essentially cut that in half, I believe, running for 800, 900 yards in 2024. Now, I will say Oklahoma State was a mess. They were one of the worst teams in college football. The offensive line was atrocious, but at the same time, he just simply looked slow on his 2024 tape. He didn't look very explosive, he didn't look very agile, and he wasn't making men miss extremely often. However, when you turn that 2023 tape, you can see fantastic size and, good speed combination. Then 6'1", 212, shows good hands as well. I just have to believe that there is that 2023 back. And while it's not anything you can measure, sometimes a new situation and a new change of scenery does really do wonders for a player. And I think that's going to be exactly what happens with Ali Gordon. The talent just has to be there. It does not just disappear. I think he needs to get back to himself, do whatever he was doing in 2023. And there's definitely some, deficiencies in his game. I think the speed may never be a elite trait of his, but I definitely think he has the talent to get back to that 2023 level. At the RB7, I'm taking that kind of upside all day because a lot of these guys in this range have similar risk, even if they have a bit of a higher floor, but the ceiling for Gordon is significantly higher than anyone I'll talk about below. At 8, though, we are going to have Dylan Samson, and he kind of reminds me of Trevon Henderson, but, the light version a little bit worse. Very similar, explosive back, good production as a junior, had 1,491 yards, 22 touchdowns. The thing is, he doesn't have as good of a receiving game as well, only caught 22 passes for 143 yards, so the tape and, stats align on that front. He's very fast, though, does have breakaway speed, will take any touch to the house, extremely elusive, and is very good at evading tackles. I really like him a lot as a good pure runner. And that's one thing that he might actually be slightly better at Henderson at. However, one thing is he's a significantly worse pass protector as well. So that's kind of the polar opposite of the two backs, which will obviously limit his ability to be a 3-down back in the NFL level, limit those dump offs. He's also struggled with fumbles, something Henderson has not. That's the quickest way to get benched in the NFL. We've seen it with Ramondre Stevenson, how the Patriots basically threatened to bench him for Antonio Gibson every few weeks when he coughs the ball up, and doesn't have really NFL level strength as well. So he's kind of weak in between the tackles and just demonstrates that on a down-to-down basis. However, I think there's definitely a ton of upside there with Samson, and I'm totally fine taking him as my RB8. Now, RB9 for me is going to be Devon Neil, and He's a player that I'm kind of surprised a lot of people aren't really talking about. I don't absolutely love Devon Neil, but he does have good size at 5'11", 215 pounds. He's just a very good running back. He just does all the things you want to see from a technique standpoint extremely well. Fantastic vision, very agile, can make defenders miss, and he's also a good pass catcher. I mean, that's really the basis of everything you want to see from a good NFL back. The issue is he's good, but not great at basically everything on this list, right? He doesn't have a very deep route tree, so while his hands are good, I do have some questions if that will translate, one-to-one to the NFL level. Despite his good vision, he doesn't really have great strength to actually win in between the tackles. And his speed, again, is good, but not great. Just a lot of things where he's good at everything, but not great at anything, which can often just, rely to a middling, fine running back that might be good for an NFL team, but won't have any real dynasty or fantasy relevance. At 10, we are going to have DJ Giddens. I think he has solid size, 6'1", 212. He evades tackles very well. He's a plus receiver. I like that a lot about him. He needs to be more nuanced as a route runner or as a general runner. He's just very raw. I think that he tries to play very creatively. He tries to play, iso ball per se and make something happen too much where sometimes he just needs to run north to south and get the yards that, the coaches ask him to, because that won't translate. You're not going to be able to outrun everyone at the NFL level. And his speed is, fine. It's definitely not great. So I think it's more so on the weakness side for Giddens. At 11, we are going to have Woody Marks, running back out of USC. 23 years old, fifth-year senior, which is one of the main concerns about his profile. He's a good pass catcher, and once we drop down to the later rounds or later running backs, I'm going to be looking for pass catching upside. We're assuming PPR leagues for most of you guys, so any running back that can catch is a good running back to bet on late because they could always have the receiving role, which is going to put them into fantasy relevance right away. Also, plus agility, plus burst, so he's above average in those departments. The contact balance as a pure runner is fine. The long speed and speed in general is fine, so that's not very good for Marks either, but any pass catcher, I think he's very good in that department. I'll take a shot on. And our last running back, RB12, is going to be RJ Harvey. Declared as a senior. Very good running back. He's very elusive, has plus contact balance, shows explosiveness, and has plus vision. He's pretty undersized, though, reported at 5'9", 208, and I honestly don't even believe he's that big. Doesn't run very well between the tackles, and just lacks general power that would translate very well to the NFL level. So I think he's a fine shot here, RB12, but there's definitely a lot of worries about the translatability in his game. But that's going to wrap up our running back rankings. If you guys do want to see my wide receiver rankings next, be sure to like this video so I can know, and I will get that out ASAP to you guys. Again, we are heading down to the Senior Bowl in 2 weeks. Please leave some comments about what you guys want to see down below. We'll be making up a ton of content that you can really only get from someone that is in the arena or stadium every single day, that hears the buzz that's going on from the NFL draft process in general, getting the inside information from these prospects to help you better understand them for Dynasty Fantasy Football. But again, big thank you for you guys for watching the video. I really appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.